Chavre, how are you? A guten Erev Shabbos. Is Erev Shabbos Parshas Ki Savo. This week was Chai Elul Yoim Holed Shnei Moeris Hagdolim. A double Mazel Tov, Mazoli Goyve from two great Jewish leaders, the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, and the Baal Shem Tov. So we're going to have to talk about the connection to this week's Parsha, Parshas Ki Savo, the Alter Rebbe, and the Baal Shem Tov. But first of all, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich begashmis v'ruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically, spiritually. Today we're going to speak about a certain date on the Jewish calendar, which I will confess, I don't even know what day it was exactly. That is one of the most important days for Judaism and for Jewish people, as we'll discuss today. But first we'll start with a prayer. We'll start with the verse from the kapitel that we say every single day now, this kapitel Chav Zayin. We'll start with Posek Daled. Achas shalti meis adinoi, oi so avakesh, shifti beveis adinoi kol yimei chayai, lachzes b'nei adinoi, ulevaker becholoi. One thing I ask of God, it do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of Hashem all the days of my life, to behold the pleasantness of Hashem and to study in His sanctuary. We spoke about this pasuk many times. First of all, the Rebbe in the Likutei Sichos says that this pasuk is the focus, the summation of the entire month that we're serving Hashem of Chodesh Elul. What's the bottom line? Sachakal from the whole Chodesh Elul, Achas Shoalti, to reveal the Yechida Shebenefesh, the Achas Shebenefesh. That means to come to the core spark that's in every single one of us, that's totally loyal and connected to Hashem. To reach that level of one interest and one desire for Hashem, which is the very core of every Yid's existence. Also, I said this story many times. My mashpia Reb Melech Tzibul Olav Hasholem, one of his sons had a bar mitzvah when I was in Morristown. And he made, like they used to do in the old days, I hope it's still happening today on some level, when a child has a bar mitzvah, the real bar mitzvah wasn't the fancy, lavish affair, but when you sat with other chassidim and you fabrengt. So Melech was our mashpia. What's the best way to become closer to your students? When you treat them as family. He was having a celebration of his son's bar mitzvah. What does he do? He brings his son into the zal, into the besmedrish. He sits him down. We make a fabrengen, and he tells his son to chazed the maimer. And his son chazed the maimer. Yisib medish tilim, b'shteit medish tilim reitz, and anoli gabatei yom b'layla. We warn her toil and teir b'tag and by nacht, and so on and so forth. At the end of the maimer, they sing a song. So Melech turns to his son and says, "No." He does You just said you want to learn Torah day and night. Is that taka true? Does that reflect where you're standing today, where you're holding today? So that was the beginning of his farbringing. Okay, now I'm going to talk about something which, in my humble opinion, I don't understand why more attention is not paid to this. There is something which the first time I really thought about it, it actually blew me away completely. So this year I decided to look into it a bit more, and things became a bit more clear to me, but still, I don't believe enough attention is paid to this, and how this is the foundation, a very foundation, a building block of all of Yiddishkeit. So, over here is a pasuk where in Revi of Parshas Ki Savo, it says that Moshe commanded the Zkenim, and they stood there at a certain place, and he says that it's going to come the day you shall cross the Jordan, and you shall set up great stones for yourself, and you're going to write in them all the words of the Torah, and afterwards he says that Pasuk Tes, Vayidaber Moshe v'Kohanim Elviim El Kol Yisrael Leimor. Moshe and the Kohanim and the Levites spoke to all of Israel, saying, Haskes u'Shma Yisrael, Hayom hazeh niyeh Shalom, L'Hashem Elikecha. He says, this day You have become a people to Hashem. Wow, that's pretty amazing. We're looking at a certain day. This day, you have become a nation. Imagine some famous historical figure addressing his nation and saying, today is the day you have become a nation, etc. What is that day? Is it Vav Sivan, Matan Torah? No. Is it Tesvav Nisan, the day when I'm Messiah? No. It's this day over here, which is going to continue on in Parshas Atan Nitzov Mayim. This day, which is going to mark a new level of dedication, devotion, and loyalty to Hashem. Lovracha bevris. Hayei mazen yei salam. Why? What? When? So Rashi on the spot, which is Pshuta Shemikra, Rashi says something interesting, which it seems to come out to be. Niyei salam. Rashi says, B'chol yom, yiu beinecho, kilu hayoim, b'asayim babris. Every day, these commandments should be in your eyes as if you had entered the covenant with him that day. So therefore, Hayayim Hazeh doesn't mean that day, one specific day in the calendar. On the contrary, what the pasuk means over here is Hayayim Hazeh. Every day you should feel that your covenant is renewed. Like marriage and marriage couples, they want to have a very good, like if you want to look at a couple, you want to say they're amazing. You say they're acting like newlyweds all the time. Wow, amazing. So Hayayim Hazeh, the Torah should be fresh and exciting and new every single day. And that's what Rashi says over here. That's what it means when it says, Hayayim Hazeh Ne'ei Salom. So Rashi clearly says, we're not talking about a specific day. But wait, there's more. So that's one interpretation. On the words, Hayayim Hazeh Ne'ei Salom. Later on, there's a pasuk what the Rebbe said so many times, especially in Tafshin Nun, which was 40 years from Tafshin Yud, 40 years after the Friedrich Rebbe's Stalkos, and the Rebbe mentioned that pasuk in that year, I don't know how many times, 100, 150, almost every Farbrengen. I don't want to exaggerate, but, and that is the pasuk which teaches us from here. We learn out, the Gemara says, that we learn out that that a person does not reach the full level of understanding and appreciating his master's words till he turns 40. And that's the pasuk which says, pasuk Gimel, Kapitel Chavtes, in Shvi, V'nosna Hashem lechem leiv l'das, v'einayim lirois, v'oznayim l'shmoya, ad hayoyim hazeh. So that's what the Gemara learns out from this. And Rashi actually brings it on the next pasuk, later on, not the next pasuk. This was pasuk Gimel, and pasuk Vav, where it says, v'tavoyu al hamokim hazeh, etc., etc., pasuk Vav, Rashi brings out that Dover Achas, see there, that's Rashi in pasuk Vav, v'linos Hashem lechem leiv l'das, she'ein odom oimid al soiv daitel sherabi v'chochmas mishnosei ad habayim shona, ulefichach lehikmid aleim hamokim ad hayom hazeh. So now we can come to another interpretation. This ad hayom hazeh is the same day. This day where the pasuk said before, is also the same day where we said before, today you became a nation. And we'll swing it to the Rashi in a second. But I first want to bring the other interpretations we could learn Pshat, which I don't find so astounding. So now we come to another interpretation. What does it mean, today you reached full maturity? Full maturity. Like therefore, like Rashi says over here, until now, you could say you're immature. There was a certain famous person, a Goyish person, and he acted a certain way until he was in his 50s. The bottom line is, somebody asked him what happened, and he said, you know what, when I was in my 20s, I found certain things irresistible. And so into my 30s, and so into my 40s. And so into my 50s. So somebody says, so what happened? But then I realized I would die a lonely old man. So therefore he decided to get married. We're talking about a goy. And then he said, I guess I remained an adolescent for too long. I remained a teenager for too long. Now this is somebody who said this, I don't know how many years ago. Maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Today, we have a new thing. I'm not getting into it because who am I? I'm a simple layman. But according to science, there's something called delayed adolescence. Until you're 24, your brain is still developing. According to Yiddishkeit, I don't know if we would accept it because when you're 13, you become a bar mitzvah. 20 is another level of einshin, whatever, but that doesn't make a difference. The meaning of the word bar mitzvah means you now take responsibility. Full on. When you're a 13-year-old boy, welcome to the army. In any case, so we see that there's a concept in the world, delayed adolescence, maturity, slow maturity. Like the average teacher or parent today will say, some of my children matured earlier, and some of my children, I guess, mature later. In a certain sense, we're saying the same thing over here. So what does it mean? Welcome. You joined the full maturity club. From here on in, since you finally got it. What your master was saying and trying to teach you all along, from here on in, you really are going to be held responsible. Okay. So now we have two pshatim. One is that it should be kichadoshim as new. Second pshat, that you reach full maturity. Now we come to a third pshat, which is brought down in the commentaries, also very gishmak. And this is connected to a famous question about Krisis Bris. There was a couple of Krisis Bris with the Eibishter. Why do we have to have so many Krisis Bris? And one of the answers is that the Krisis Bris that happens in Parshas Nitzavim is a Krisis Bris that's about communal responsibility, which means that we're going to look after one another. Please excuse me for a second. Where Hashem says, "Hanistoris laHashem Elokeinu," I will take care of those things which only I know about. But v'aniglus lanu v'neinu, when it comes to things that are happening that the courts are realizing about it, the community realizes about it, is called arvus, responsibility. And this is what happened. That's the chiddush of this bris over here, that we took responsibility one for another. Now, if that's the pshat, and this was the chiddush, the novelty of this bris, so therefore the words, Hayei mazeh niyei sala'om. Today we became a nation. A nation is a new metzias. It's not only a collection of individuals, and each one has his private life, but there's something that happens when we all join together. There's a tzibur, there's a am, there's a nation. And what does a nation mean? We take responsibility one for the other. Beautiful. So now we have a third pshat. But the thing which totally blows me away is what Rashi says on the words in the pasuk where it says, I will now read you what the Rashi says. I get chills every single time I think about it, and I can't understand why the Rebbe didn't make a big shturm and nash about it, and maybe sometimes that itself is the point. The Rebbe wanted us to do it, and that would be the sign that we got it. Listen to what Rashi says over here. Ada Yemazeh. You know what means Ada Yemazeh? It's relating to a specific episode, a specific event that happened. Listen to this. Rashi says, Shamaiti, I have heard. Sha'oisi ayoyim shenosa Moshe sefer HaTorah l'bnei Levi, on that day, that Moshe was going to give the Torah to the children of Shevet Levi, k'mo shekosav vayitna l'kohanim bnei Levi, bo kol Yisrael l'fnei Moshe. All of the rest of the nations in Shvatim came to Moshe. V'omru loi, Moshe Rabbeinu, af onu amadnu b'Sinai. We too stood at Sinai. V'kibalnu as Torah, and we received the Torah. V'nitnu lanu was given to us, and we accepted it. Why do you put the sons of your tribe in charge of it? So that one day they may say to us, they're going to say, you Bechal weren't given the Torah, it was given to us. We're special. We're higher than you. Moshe was rejoiced over the matter. And this is what it means when he told them, Hayim Hazer Niyesalom v'goymer. This day you have become a people. That is, Hayim Hazer Hivanti. Now I finally understood. This day I understood. Shatem dveikim mechveitzim b'mokim. They cleave to and desire to the omnipresent. Wow, wow, wow. First of all, Rashi says Shamaiti. Shamaiti. I don't know how many times Rashi says Shamaiti today. My friends, students, there's Google, look it up. And he doesn't say from who. I'm assuming this was a revelation of God. He had a vision. Otherwise, why wouldn't he say from who he heard it? And second of all, what do you mean you heard? You think we can make up a pshat? You can make up a theory when it's illogic. Meaning to say, this is one opinion, one viewpoint, one perspective, one opinion, one school of thought, etc. But when it comes to an event happening in Metzias, what are you going to say? It could be that this happened. From where? From what? From when? Where does it say this? This is all or nothing. When it comes to the emes, when it comes to reality, we say, see the Ma'aseh, they see the Ma'aseh, did it happen or didn't it happen? Such a monumental event that concerning that event, and because of this episode, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu meant, as Rashi says over here, Hayom Hazen Eliezer Yom. Finally, today, you became a nation. And according to this interpretation, why did you become a nation? Not only because of the idea that you reach full maturity as a 40-year-old, so you finally appreciate the words of the Master, but in general, the point that you're interested. The first time this Rashi hit me, I don't know how long ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I got chills down my back thinking about the Rebbe. The Rebbe's bringing. Here's Moshe Rabbeinu. He was bringing for 40 years. And all the time he was bringing, he thought to himself, I have 10% of the people that are interested. Less than 10%. Shevet Levi. But the rest are not really listening. They're not really absorbing. They don't really care. Doesn't seem like that. Shevet Levi are the ones who come over to me afterwards and ask me, Pshat, what did you mean over here? You mentioned this Taisus there. Where's that Taisus? Etc., etc. He gave a speech. There's thousands of people there. And a couple hundred are asking him questions afterwards and getting involved. And not only that, they're the ones that stick around and say, you know what? Give me more. Ooh, the shir ended so early. Let's hear more. Moshe had a level of frustration. Bedakos. And why am I saying that? Because look what Rashi says here. I'm basing on these words. How unbelievable is that Moshe say V'somach Moshe ala dover. And then he says Hayom Hazen Eliezer. Now I see Shatem dveikim mechveitzim b'mokim. It means till this day he didn't see that. The lesson for us is so enormous. So first and foremost, what does it mean? Hayom Hazen Eliezer. What does it mean? What does it mean? A sense of nationhood. We have a couple of interpretations now. There's nationhood as communal responsibility. There's nationhood when we're dealing with mature people, full development of the maximum potential, 40 years after you hear the words from the Master. And then there's nationhood of personal responsibility, when each person makes it clear and evident and he demonstrates that he cares. Are you interested? When he says, yes, I'm interested, I want. And he's going to go demonstrate that. Finally, that means we're a nation. And that's the power of the Jewish nation, by the way. By unser Yochad Rabin. There could be a Jew in Pakistan, Afghanistan, in Cairo, in Peru, in Chile. And he's learning about Gemara by himself. He's illuminating his whole country. He has a child, and he's learning with that child Gemara and Chassidus. The light is continuing on. The nuclear energy is continuing on. And that's what it means. Hayom Hazen Eliezer. Why? because you've all been galvanized. You're all supercharged on a personal level. And each one of you, on a personal level, each one of you as an individual is going to carry on the torch. Because you all cried out and said, you're interested, I want, etc. So this is a tremendous lesson. And I think of it concerning the Rebbe and Chassidim and the 40 years, 42 years of the Nesius when the Rebbe was from bringing and talking and sichas, non-stop pouring and pouring and pouring and giving and giving and giving. And are we talking about all the sichas and all the Maimorim and every single sicha that Moshe should look at me from Shevet Yisachar, from Shevet Yehuda, from Shevet Binyamin, and I should be able to say that because I said I want, it should say somewhere written in some spiritual level, V'somach Moshe ala davar, V'somach Harebi ala davar, that Yankel Beryl Shmerel is saying he wants, he loves the sichas, he wants more of the sichas, and he's bringing more of the sichas into action. Anyways, and this is the connection between the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov, that in a way, this is the difference between the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. We're not going to elaborate. The video is already a bit long. And I'll just read from you, from the Sikha and Likutei Sichas Chelik Daled, page 1138, which comes from a Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, where he says that in other words, first I want to tell you outside. So the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, they represent the idea that they go over to another Yid, and they say, Shema Yisrael, all of a sudden that person's neshama is pumping. It's alive. They go over to another Jew and they're able to reignite his soul. They go straight to his neshama and his faith becomes inflamed, and his simplicity and his trust and his connection to Hashem becomes rejuvenated. Yes, just like it says the analogy, actually, that the Baal Shem Tov came to the generation that was in a state of faint, hisalfos, and he revived the entire generation. How powerful is that? Wonderful. But you know what the problem is? It really wasn't that he met the psyche and the personality of every single person as an individual. And as an individual, the person's own neshama, emunah, became aligned with the personality on an individual level. Who accomplished that? The Alter Rebbe. In the words of Chassidus in different places, sometimes it says that the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid went in a way of Mamayla Lamata, from above down below. The way of the Alter Rebbe was Mamata Lamayla, from below upward. And sometimes it says that the way of the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid were more makifim. That means very powerful forces acting upon the person, as if, like, so to speak, superimposed. It's not really superimposed because they're just revealing who you are, but still it came from an overwhelming force, an overwhelming power, an overwhelming energy. The Alter Rebbe's way was a bit different. The Alter Rebbe's way was to go deep down, for lack of a better word, getting down and dirty with the person, in his mud, in his cement, in his quicksand, and then examine the situation, and then slowly but surely also ignite that person's essence, but in a way that he saw how that very essence was aligned with his individuality and with his personality. That's called etzem, working together with pnimius. So I'll just read to you over here. It says that the Izgalus of the Baal Shem Tov was the Izgalus of pnimius atera, shaloi b'vchinas eslapshus. It didn't really become absorbed and enclosed with the individual. And then he says, listen to this. V'arayah the gam talmidi arava magid mezrich. Proof positive is that even his disciple, who was the Magid, who was unbelievable, before he spoke Chassidus, he said, Shimu Saydis HaTorah. Listen to secrets of the Torah. The crowd really couldn't handle it. That's what it says. Even though this is a great, awesome level, but that still doesn't represent the revelation of essence that has the power to transcend the levels of secret and revealed, and just be able to be revealed and cause that the individual and the details don't become suppressed or ignored or overwhelmed, but we have the details, we have the specifics, and they itself become aligned with the essence. Now it's not time to elaborate, to explain. So this is the Vort. And here comes the famous story, which we said many times, that somebody once came to the Alter Rebbe and was saying, I don't know exactly the beginning of the story, the punchline is the main point. Somebody came to the Alter Rebbe and said, look at the chassidim of that person. Look, they're on fire. They're brennen, they're on fire, they're davening with a passion. So he's trying to say, like it seems, look at that other Rebbe, that other master, and he's having success with his disciples, and they're all on fire. So the Alter Rebbe answered the famous line, brennt, you think that chassid is burning? Chaikel brennt in him. His master is burning in him. In other words, it didn't become internalized. It didn't become absorbed. It's not really his. His master is the ultimate, so to speak, spiritual wizard, for lack of a better word, who could work his magic, for lack of a better word, spiritual holiness, on that person, that person is now transformed and praying. But it didn't really become one with him. It's not really him. He still has difficulties in some part of his psyche that has not been resolved. Chabad Chassidus is meant to resolve everything in its details. So that's what Alter Rebbe meant when he said, brennt, Chaikel brennt in him. And his job, the Alter Rebbe's mission, was to make soll brennen, you, with your individuality, with your personality, with your details, should cry out, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And this was the Alter Rebbe's point, that avodah pnimius, internal character development, step by step, working on yourself, avodah pnimius, and avas Hashem, love Hashem, yiras Hashem, and his bonas das, understanding in Elokus, is something that's meant not only to be for the master, but for every single chassid on an individual level, has to work on himself to reach that level, similar to this Rashi that we're speaking over here, that we're demanding it. V'samach Moshe al hadavar. That's Chassidus Chabad. And he also mentions over here that the Avos, Avraham Yitzchak, are compared to the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, and the Alter Rebbe is compared to Moshe Rabbeinu. So says the Rebbe over there in Chelik Dal. The Rebbe should help. That this should be our preparation. We're coming to Slichas Motzei Shabbos, L'cho Hashem Atzdoko, V'lo Nu Abeishes Ponim. It's not something that's meant to make us sad. On the contrary, we're so happy that you alone, Atzmusamus, L'cho, you're putting yourself into the hands of the Eibush himself, and therefore that lifts you up like nothing else. You just have to come with humility. L'cho Hashem Atzdoko, we're in Hashem's hands, and Hashem will take care of us. But we have to work on ourselves to cry out and say, we want, we're interested, we're here, we're making a new level of commitment, devotion, and dedication. And the schus of that, and the schus of the Baal Yei Ma'iled is the Baal Simcha, the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. Ganz Klal Yisrael should have a ksivach, simatevel, l'shana teva, mesukah, good Shabbos. And the Gula Mitzvah Shlema take miyad mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.